Welcome to part 1 of Dungeon Journey playthrough. So, once we open the game, we are met with a very narrow screen that looks like a screen that was meant to be for a mobile, but it is an actual PC game. It's an indie PC game, so we are playing on the PC as we're meant to. As you can see, I played through the campaign a bit. I did the first level and explored the second one to see if the game was worth it. And as you can see, now that I'm playing the game is quite enjoyable. I'm just scrolling through the options to see what is available to us. I played the first level and a half as sorceress, but we're gonna replay through the first level as a knight, just to see, explore different heroes. As you can see, there are 5 hero slots available, but we are gonna be doing the full playthrough as sorceress, but we're gonna do this first level as a knight, cause I already played through the first level as sorceress, and just to show you guys like the differences, the varieties between each hero, we're gonna do this as a knight. So as we can see, we have inventory. My knight doesn't have any items. The gold and other resources are shared through your heroes, as it is in many dungeon crawler games. So this is the first level, the first floor of all of the 5 floors of this level, of this dungeon. So as you can see, we have 15 mana on this hero, we have 50 HP, and we have 2 abilities. The one on the left, which is like a shield bash, you do minor damage to the enemy and you stun them for 1 turn, which is upgradable later on, which increases damage, maybe increases or reduces mana cost of it depending on your items and your build and such, but it also will increase the stun duration. I'm gonna talk about the blocking in a bit. The ability on the right does damage only to undead, demon, and ghost enemies. When you click on each tile, when you're exploring the map being the dungeon, there is a chance that you either gonna get an enemy, you either gonna get a chest, an item, a potion, or anything of that sort, or gold. Depends. So as you can see, the first floor is usually very easy, as it gets progressively more difficult throughout your journey into the dungeon. That's why it's called Dungeon Journey, I guess. So barrels, or sarcophags, or tombstones, they can have either items in them or enemies depending on your luck. Some enemies, once you discover them, some of them are gonna instantly fire at you, some are gonna be passive, some might even become your allies, some might even steal your gold or anything of that sort. So let's talk about the actual gameplay. So what is this blocking that we are gonna see every now and then? So by clicking space or left click on your hero, if you do that at the right time, you're gonna block the majority of the damage dealt by your enemy, and maybe later on we even gonna get some abilities, some passives that are gonna deal damage back to the enemy or give us some extra defense, some extra protection, just because we blocked right at the right time. Doesn't matter if you have a shield or not, doesn't matter if you are knight, sorceress, rogue, or whatever, you can block no matter what. That's basically the idea of the game. Try to always have your hand ready on your space so that you can block whenever you get one of those enemies that pop up instantly and fire at you. And there are about 3 to 4 types of attacks. There are range attacks, which is basically the enemies firing arrows at you, which is instantaneous. You have to block that right away. There are enemies that will attack you with a dagger or a sword. That takes a moderate amount of time. And there are enemies which will throw boulders at you, which is similar to the timing you need for the enemies that attack you with swords. And then we have the last type of attack, which is basically receiving an attack with an axe. There is a very delayed attack that deals very high amount of damage and is usually used by the enemies that have high HP, high defense, and are generally enemies which you don't want to mess with. So they usually do a delayed attack. So you want to get a hang of every type of attack and kinda know as you play through the game which enemies have what type of attacks. Cause if you guess it wrong, then well, you're not gonna block the attack and you're gonna take full damage, which is basically not what you wanna do. Cause if you attack the enemy with your spell, they don't hit back. But once you attack them with your actual attack, they do hit back unless you have some spell on them that makes them stunned or unable to attack. So right here, as we can see, we have the giant, the tree, and the snake, I guess. Snake is one of those enemies that will always attack you once you discover them. The giant, for example, the giants throw boulders. They are very strong. They have high HP, high damage. As you can see, no matter what type of attack it is, you can block it if you do your blocking at the right time. And throughout the dungeon, you're gonna have bunch of potions, and you cannot, like, once you have 15 mana, if your limit is 15 mana and you consume a potion that restores 7 mana and you have like 12 for example, you're not gonna go over the limit. So you're gonna make sure that you distribute the usage of these potions and cauldrons and whatnot to basically fuel your spell usage and HP whenever you need to, and try to make sure that you don't waste any potion or anything like that. Generally, if you're a sorceress or any hero that has a good use of abilities and deals extra spell damage, then obviously you wanna keep using abilities and spells on those heroes. But for a hero such as Knight, like since we're level 1, for example, right now, we don't really specialize in anything. But as you can see, Knights generally have better blocking. Even though we're level 1 and we faced quite a few difficult enemies, we still managed to block the majority of the attacks just because of the sheer amounts of block power, I guess. Because, knights have better block compared to sorcerers, who specializes in spell usage and having bigger mana pool compared to the knight. So, generally, like, using a spell at first, then attacking the opponent is a lot of the times good idea, because if you finish the creature off with your attack, they're not gonna hit you back because they're dead. But if you attack them at the start, you're gonna get hit back, and using ability after makes no sense because you already got attacked. And some of the creatures, like if you mouse over them or if you right click any creature, as I'm doing right now, you're gonna see that some creatures have passives. Some of them summon other creatures, such as the mummy on our right. So that's him summoning a mummy or an undead creature, as we can see, which is not something you wanna experience. You don't wanna waste any HP or any resource mindlessly, cause as you progress through the campaign, it's gonna become very difficult to deal with multiple enemies at a time, cause generally what you wanna do that once you discover the enemy, if they're not gonna do anything to you, well, you can ignore them unless you know for a fact, or if they're the last opponent and you know that they're dropping the key that you want. The key is the item that you want to open the door to the next floor. And after each last floor, you're gonna face a boss. Bosses are generally really difficult, might even be impossible if you're not prepared. So generally when you go to the last floor, we're not gonna see this in the first campaign, the first dungeon, because the game is trying to introduce you to the mechanics and way everything works. And if you see that red lightning go on one of the creatures on the screen, that means that one of their passive makes them stronger throughout each turn. So generally you wanna kill those enemies right away because you don't want them to become stronger. Some of the enemies do that, as you saw. Some of the enemies summon others, some of them heal, and they do variety of things that you don't want them to do. You generally want to kill them, unless you want to ignore them, unless you're low HP and you want to keep all your HP and power for the next floor, such as the floor where you would expect a boss to be. So that's generally the idea of the game. Just try to do your best at executing the block mechanic and make a good use of the abilities and spells that you have and that you find. And yeah, that was it for this episode. Thanks for watching and see you in the next one.